I wanted to preface this episode by saying that as a channel that watches and discusses WWE, I did not want to ignore the severity of the recent Vince McMahon lawsuit. It's not the kind of thing I take lightly, and I encourage everyone to seek out the information to whatever capacity you could handle, to be aware of what's going on, and hope that these horrible things coming to light is the first step towards significant change. I just didn't feel right jumping into anything wrestling related without touching on that first. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the episode. There was plenty of wrestling going on throughout the week. Japan specifically had a busy run of shows, featuring some nearing departures as well as some bright patches of the up-and-coming talent. We are going to get right into it, but as always, just a reminder that I haven't seen every single match to have taken place, and the ones I do choose to talk about are all based on my personal enjoyment and nothing else. A slight spoiler warning as well, as I will be talking about match finishes too. After watching 62 matches spanning 9 promotions, here are a few of my favorites from the 4th week of January. I am a big Kosei Fujita guy, and while this match didn't result in his first championship as I'd hoped, it still functioned as a showcase for his potential moving forward. There's also the small matter of this being Kazuchika Okada's last appearance in Korakuen Hall, at least as a New Japan wrestler. The Okada-Fujita dynamic is the centerpiece here, but I think everyone else plays their part within this 6-man tag structure to make for a really fun match. Korakuen is up for this one, well behind the Rainmaker as they wish their farewells. Fujita starts the match not taken back by the occasion, taking runs at all 3 of the never 6-man tag team champions. We've seen enough to know how Okada would handle this, and waste no time dumping him on the outside. They give Fujita significant time with everyone. Ishii does his best to remind him of his young boy status by putting him in a Boston Crab, though Fujita hangs in there to get a break. By this point, it's his turn with the ace. Fujita uses his explosiveness to get around Tanahashi's physical limitations, and even pulls off a dragon screw on the president. This is an incredibly on-the-nose moment to end this opening gauntlet. It's a moment that tells us while the occasion is to celebrate Okada, this match is about Kosei Fujita. I think it's telling that all the press photos on New Japan's website only feature him from the TMDK side. I didn't mind the segments without him though. I know how some feel about Haste and Nichols in 2024, but I don't think anything here overstayed its welcome. The final third returns to Okada and Fujita, who trade disrespectful strikes and boot washes. As it progresses into your usual Okada fare, he stresses more and more emphasis on the lion mark in the middle of the ring. Fujita, in one final act of defiance, attempts to roll up Okada over the logo to send him packing. It's to no avail, but it's a nice little moment that's consistent with his energy in the match. Fujita eats everyone's signature moves, and Okada is given one final chance to play the hits, ending things with a poignant Rainmaker. We still have over a week until Okada is truly done in New Japan, so I'll save my sentiments until then, but this was a blast. If you've ever had a rookie or a young lion you're partial to, this was that moment for me with Fujita. I hope New Japan follows through with this endorsement. I really enjoyed the abbreviated feud between the Blackpool Combat Club and Shane Taylor Promotions over the last week. I think both Taylor and Moriarty are underutilized and made for some solid TV matches. In Moriarty's case, the singles match with Jon Moxley harkens back to the original idea of the Blackpool Combat Club, that being the veterans pushing the up-and-comers of the roster. Mox is positioned as the clear favorite, though Moriarty does not falter. He's incredibly confident in his strengths, demonstrated in the opening mat exchanges. They do a good job of keeping things on even footing, as Mox can take over with his striking, though when Lee grounds him, it's never too far from the ropes. Even when trading blows, Moriarty still maintains his demeanor, pie-facing Mox in the ropes and even taunting him face-to-face. Naturally, this is where Moxley can swing things in his favor, though a reversal of an apron pile driver gives Lee a limb to go after. The pace quickens as Moriarty stays on Moxley, and is able to get out of the majority of Mox's counters. Unfortunately for Moriarty, he gets a little too ambitious, and an elbow grounds a springboard attempt. Despite his best efforts, Moxley's signature offense is too much to overcome. I thought this was a really good TV match, probably the best non-tournament match on Rampage in months. With the ranking system coming back, I think this is the ideal TV match to incorporate it. Guys like Moxley are going to need wins, and there's plenty of talent who could use a good showcase. Why not tick both of those boxes when you have 5 hours of TV time to play with? Moriarty was awesome in this spot with what he brings to the table, and things were very well paced between the two. I hope we see more of Taiga style in AEW proper in 2024. I enjoyed Pro Wrestling Noah's involvement with the Twin Gate titles last year, and I think this match is an indication that this reign is off to a good start. Dragongate hosted their first marquee event this weekend, which I thought was a breeze of a watch. Only the main event cracked 15 minutes, and both the Triangle and Twin Gate matches were a lot of fun. In the Twin Gate title match, the Pro Wrestling Noah team of Kaito, Kiyomiya, and Alejandro made their first defense of the titles against the team of Jackie Funky Kamei and Jason Lee. The Kung Fu Masters normally only appear in Kobe, so they made a special appearance in Yokohama due to running their pop-up store. I'm glad they made this decision since they're an awesome team that paired extremely well with the Noah duo. Speaking of, there was a lot of discussion over how Kaito and Alejandro are presented as outsiders. I think in Alejandro's case, there's just more for him to work with in a style that suits him, whereas in Noah, he was in matches with the same set of junior heavyweights just slightly altered each time. More to do with a variety of opponents really helps. Kaito being the heavyweight in the match greatly aids the dynamic when he's in the ring. For example, his clear strength advantage allows him to take over on Jackie, leading to the hot tag for Jason Lee to send the match into the next gear. I don't necessarily think that's an indictment on how Kaito is treated in his home promotion, it's just finding him in a much different scenario that maybe gives a refreshed perspective on his work. His opponents here specifically complement that point. The challengers are explosive and can kick off with very little time and space, as Lee shows by fighting off both Kaito and Alejo at one point. By the time Jackie is back in the ring, the two showcase their snappy combination offense, leading to a blistering finishing stretch. Kaito and Jackie specifically had great chemistry here, trading many slick counters before Kaito hits his modified Shining Wizard for the victory. There is a lot packed into 12 minutes here, and all the moving parts complement each other nicely. I'm trying to make a more concerted effort of seeking out more tag wrestling this year, and this match is a good endorsement of where to find it. I'm very excited for the Rey de Parejas tournament in March, and I hope Kaito and Alejandro get a nice run with these belts. Clearly they can excel in this environment. Dan Tamura has quietly had a very good couple of months. Since winning the Junior Battle for Glory and the Junior Heavyweight title in December, he's bookended his January with 2 solid title defenses, most recently in his second defense against Koji Iwamoto, in a match where Tamura's strengths take center stage. Tamura is incredibly straightforward as a wrestler, often relying on fiery comebacks and hard-hitting offense to get himself out of trouble. This match is no different. Iwamoto takes over on the outside with some throws before a brainbuster onto the apron puts him firmly in control. Tamura is naturally rattled by this, struggling to get his bearings in the ensuing exchanges. He starts to gain some momentum around the 5-minute mark, but often grounded, and has to go back to the well of explosive furies from underneath. I thought his selling and demeanor here were strong, maintaining the feeling of his back against the wall, continuing to fire up to find a way out. Iwamoto does his job of cutting off Dan when called for, most notably with a reverse gory bomb before the finish, which was just gross. Tamura finally gets himself a proper opening by nailing Iwamoto with a dozen consecutive lariats. Hitting 12 lariats in a row is the kind of excessive that I appreciate. This gives him the time to set up a powerbomb for the win. Upon a rewatch, I think your enjoyment of this match will vary on how much you can invest in Tamura's comebacks. I find him to be incredibly endearing, so a lot of this worked for me. This might not be the best match of his recent successes, but rather a very strong individual performance to add to his first title reign. His next defense is against none other than Fuminori Abe, which is one that I'm very excited to see. At just short of 6 minutes, this match combines one of my favorite tropes with the sentimental aspect of Yukio Sakaguchi's impending retirement. Hideki Okatani is one of my favorite young wrestlers in Japan, and he's been under Sakaguchi's wing for a while now. This acts as a final lesson for him, as now his former faction members will be all but gone. Sakaguchi is here to literally kick that reality into his student. In his final match in Korakuen Hall, this is exactly what happens. A nice detail in the entrances is neither man is wearing their white Eruption entrance gear. I didn't catch any of the tour dates after they disbanded, so this may have been apparent already. It is, however, a noticeable absence in the context of these two facing each other for the final time. Okatani rushes his mentor early and sets pace for a sprint, getting an advantage using forearms. It's when he slows down and switches to kicks where he makes a fatal error. Sakaguchi has an MMA background and bases his offense around these kicks. Here he shows Okatani the proper way to do so, blasting him with targeted strikes to the arm and a crucial shot to the knee on the outside. The student-mentor dynamic is best shown when Sakaguchi is able to goad Okatani into swinging recklessly. This lapse in concentration allows him to counter with a triangle, and from there the result rarely feels out of reach. A gross knee lift and a couple of Kami no Migi Hiza put away Sakaguchi's pupil. The sentiment elevated this for me, but if you're not too familiar with Eruption, it's still a good sprint. The majority of this match is just really hard striking, and I think you could find a lot worse within a 6-minute runtime. And before I go, here are some honorable mentions. El Desperado vs Yoshinobu Kanemaru from New Japan, January 23rd. Not as strong as their Best of the Super Junior match last spring, but these two rarely disappoint with their technical prowess. Your threshold on the House of Torture run-ins will vary, but I think by their standards this was a lot more palatable. The Stardom Anniversary match that aired January 25th. If you like current Stardom, I think you'll like this. A lot of its strengths are in the individual encounters, such as Mayu and Hazuki on opposite sides, and Utami using Azumi as a weapon at one point just rocks. Bryan Danielson vs Yuji Nagata from AEW, January 27th. Two of the greatest ever having a double limb work match on TV. Can't ask for much more than that. And last but not least, Io de Canis Lupus vs Io del Fishman from IWRG, January 28th. Shout out to Chris O'Brien for this recommendation. Just a crazy lucha brawl featuring torn masks, blood, dudes throwing chairs at each other's heads, and a Death Valley driver over the barricade. I caught this one late in the weekly window, but I'm glad I have these guys on my radar now. You can find this one for free on the Mas Lucha YouTube channel. And that is it from me. If you got this far into the video, thanks so much for your time and for hearing what I have to say. Be sure to do all the obligatory YouTube stuff by liking and subscribing, and find me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Outer Stevon. Let me know if I missed anything worth checking out, and I'll talk to you again next week.